running for mayor of Seguin. Thank you very much. And the Lord had put it on my heart to do so. And before I get into that, I want to say that to all my family and friends here and anybody ever who knew me, I'd like to ask for forgiveness, because a lot of times in my life, I set a bad example and did a lot of wrong things. And that landed me in places that I shouldn't have been in. And I served the Lord, and then I backslid from Him. And I experienced the blessings and the cursings of the Lord. And it took me some discipline from Him to begin to mature and to learn. And not only to learn how to discipline myself, but to learn to love my neighbor, even when they persecute me. And I ask for forgiveness sincerely in my heart. And I tell everybody that tells me, well, aren't you the guy who backslid? And I tell them, well, what do you want me to do? Give up and stay there? I just can't do that, because there's more ahead than there was behind me. And I liken it to the story of Moses. And when he first began to get the call, see, he was in the house of Pharaoh. And he saw his people. And my people nowadays are anybody I can direct contact with, anybody that I can have an influence on. It's not about race or background or family that you're from, but your neighbor is anyone you can directly influence. And Moses, he saw his people in bondage, and he went there, and the Egyptians were putting an oppression on them, and he killed those Egyptian men. And that mentality I had before of doing for my people, I thought that if you disrespected me and I fought you one-on-one, that's how I was helping my people. But the Lord had to show me different. He told me that it takes more of a man to love someone. It takes more of a man not to fight and walk away. Because the person who does fight, he needs everybody around him to tell him he's a man. But the one who walks away, he only needs himself to tell himself he's a man. And so Moses killed those Egyptians and he left. And it was in the desert that the Lord began to teach him. And I've experienced that time in the desert. And finally he came to the burning bush. And it was at that burning bush the Lord had spoke to him. And he spoke to me now. And he taught me what I must do and how I must lead and help my people. And he told me that I've got to put him, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, back into the powers that be. Because that's where we're going to get changed. Because the problem is not the outside, it's the inside and the heart. And the only way to get to the heart is through the Lord. And I'll leave you with this example on how. Because there's a big drug war going on. And many of us believe that we should lock them up for years. But let me show you another way. I was on the streets one time and I was talking to people about the Lord. Well, this man followed me home. And he said, I want what you have, Jeremiah. I want to know God. So I began to pray with him with my pastor, which is my dad. And when we got done praying, he reached in his pocket and he handed over some drugs. And we threw them in the trash. Now that is the Lord's way of getting to the man, getting to the heart. And that's where change begins. And that's what I'm hoping that the Lord can use me for with my city. Thank y'all very much.
Thanks be to God who always causes us to triumph in His name. Thanks be